In today's economy, more people than ever are looking to buy and sell businesses. But how do you do it? Welcome to the Deal Board, presented by Transworld Business Advisors. Straight talk about real deals and real people. Listen to stories, interviews, and expert advice to help your business sale, merger, or acquisition process. Now, here are your business exit experts, Andy and Jessica.
Welcome back, everybody, and thanks for listening to the show again. Today, we are focusing on the restaurant industry, and the restaurant industry is an interesting industry when it comes to business sales. It represents actually a large chunk of the sales we do every year. It's the biggest industry that trades in terms of number of deals done. And we've got some great guests on the show that have a ton of expertise in the industry and share some insights with us.
Yeah, I have one of my dear friends, and I've actually helped him buy and sell a few restaurants, and actually he owns one of the best bakeries down here in Florida. And I always say he's got the Midas touch. I mean, he always seems to buy things and run them real well. So he's going to talk about some of the secrets of running a good restaurant and making sure that, you have good customer service and food costs and labor costs and all those kind of things. But Leone seems to always get it right in his restaurants, and then he sells some and he keeps moving on. And he talks about, big businesses coming into a restaurant business and whether or not there's still opportunity for the small guy. And you'll hear more about that.
Yeah. And then I have an interview with Chris Cantwell, who's on our Transworld team in Denver, but he also came to the team with decades of experience in the restaurant industry. So he talks a little bit about the trends in the industry and specifically what some opportunities are out there for buyers. We talk a lot about how purchasing a restaurant versus building it and starting it on your own can really save a ton of money in capital costs. And if you kind of look at our network and visit our website and look at the businesses we have for sale at any given time, there's tons of restaurants available in every market.
Yeah. And I also have Chris Tripoli from Houston, Texas, talking about his, group that goes out there and starts restaurants. And he's just an incredible guy. And he actually helps restaurants be more profitable and is a consultant. So you're going to hear the good, bad, and ugly today of the restaurant business. But, I think one thing that we could all agree upon is, while we sell, it is the most often bought and sold, business that we handle at Transworld. But at the same time, and we always have these funny things like, if you feel like you want to get in the restaurant business, put your hand in a door and slam it on it until the feeling goes away. So how to make a small restaurant in the restaurant, or how to make a small fortune in the restaurant business, start with a large one.
Yep.
Right. But there's all those jokes. But, even Leone says is that it's a great business. It's a good business, and people who do it right are very successful. And it's really the American dream for a lot of people.
Right. I mean, almost every buyer we talk to, they bring up wanting to own their own restaurant as a dream. And you're right. If you do it correctly, it's a great business to be in. I mean, people eat through all types of different economies, right? So it's not, I wouldn't call it recession resistant, but it does ebb and flow with the economy. It's a great industry to be in. And there's a lot of opportunity for growth, but you do have to know some of these secrets that our industry experts talk about today.
Yeah. And I think we even saw it during the economic downturn that restaurant business did not go away. I'll tell you that right now. What went away is kind of like the white tablecloth kind of service. And then people were looking for that quick serve casual. And that's where you saw the explosion of all these quick serve, but service at the table restaurants that kind of came into being. And I think we're seeing a kind of a resurgence of small little restaurants that are catering toward a higher end. You even mentioned in Denver, it's the latest restaurant, right?
Oh yeah. Denver is exploding in terms of this food scene right now. And the newest restaurant is the best restaurant, right? It's the hardest one to get into. But because of that, you're seeing a lot of savvy restaurateurs open different types of concepts, more international flavors, but you're also seeing this trend, like you mentioned, Andy, of these small venues that are, hosting anywhere between 8 and 12 tables. And again, that white glove, white tables, cloth type of service, but you're seeing that resurgence now that the economy is doing really well. And then honestly too, Denver's become a pretty big food hub.
Yeah, I definitely have enjoyed myself eating in Denver. So, and South Florida and New York. And, it's a great episode. If you're ever thinking about opening a restaurant, you should listen to this one.
All right, sounds good. Let's get to it. Transworld Business Advisors is the world's largest business brokerage and mergers and acquisitions firm with over 500 brokers in nearly 200 offices worldwide. Transworld's team handles thousands of business sales every year. To be connected with a qualified business broker or learn more about the buying and selling process, visit tworld.com/the deal board or call 888-719-9098.
Hey, we're back, and we have a very special guest today. If we wanted to get an expert to talk about restaurants, we have him. His name is Chris Tripoli, and he was the founder of A La Carte Food Service Consulting Group, which is still around, and he is now moving on to his next chapter in his life of speaking and teaching, and he also wrote the book, So You're Thinking About Owning, Operating, or Investing in a Restaurant, which is exactly what we're talking about today. So, Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
So, Chris, obviously you've had a varied background, and you were just telling me before we started this about some of the great resources that are available to people who are thinking about owning and operating a restaurant.
Absolutely. Like any industry, there's a plethora of information and trade journals that are out there. But I recommend two things specifically for people who want to stay abreast with information about owning, operating, opening, expanding. One is a website called restaurantowner.com. Restaurantowner.com is operated by a couple of great guys I've known for years that have, between themselves and others that work with them, a tremendous amount of practical experience to share about the opening process or the operating process of a restaurant. And it's connected to a magazine. There's a monthly magazine called Restaurant Startup and Growth. And so between those two resources, you can stay very, very current on what people experience with opening or operating the day-to-day restaurant operations.
Wow, that's great. And so let's talk about that. Like if somebody's going to open up a restaurant and one of the things that we've been talking about on this episode is that there's still opportunity for the small restaurateur, don't you think?
There's tremendous opportunity, yes, for the individual restaurant operator. And it's mainly because our industry has broadened so greatly, and people's dining habits have increased. So, we're dining out more. Even if we're not dining out, we're dining in, but from restaurant food that can be delivered. And so that's why you've seen the increase in third-party delivery. You've seen an increase in packaged food items that we can buy partially recipeed and then we cook in the home. I think all these show tremendous opportunity for the smaller independent restaurant operator.
So if somebody wanted to, kind of get started in the restaurant industry and they buy they're looking to buy their, first small restaurant, kind of get going, what are some of the things that you think are so important kind of to start off correctly?
Well, to start out correctly, the first thing they want to do is don't hurry. This is all about being prepared. You're going to be told many times from many people that, restaurants are not a good thing to do. All these new restaurants struggle and fail. And that's a bit of an exaggeration, but I don't want to belittle the point that it is difficult.
Sure.
It's a very competitive industry, so we want to be prepared. So the very first thing we want to do is study the choices. If you're going to open a restaurant for the first time, there's choices. Do you want to start something from scratch? Or would it be better to maybe work with a business broker to find a business that you could buy? There's advantages and disadvantages in both. Do you want it to be your own name, your own concept? Or would you want to be a franchise of something that's already operating and available because it's established? Again, there's advantages and disadvantages in both. So when we meet people for the first time, that's what we want to do is walk them through all the choices so that they're picking a path that is best for them.
Yeah, that's great advice, and taking it slow and being able to, maybe buy a restaurant or even buying a restaurant that, has failed, but they have all the build out ready to go, right?
Yes, yeah, that's what we call the second generation, the restaurant turnaround. And sometimes that gives you the advantage of getting into a spot, say, that would maybe not necessarily be available. Maybe it's a very established part of town and it's a great market, but there's no new spaces available. But here's a small failed restaurant. And so not only is there the advantage of getting into a market that may otherwise not be available, but then as you were mentioning, sometimes there's cost advantages in that you don't have to replicate some of the very expensive things that are already there. Underground utilities and grease trap, ventilation. So those kinds of things are advantages if you can find something, that's already been a restaurant.
Right. And so if, once somebody finds that restaurant and somebody's, buys what they want to do or opens up a franchise or opens up anything, you did say, and it is true, there's nothing that's easy. I mean, there's no business that's easy. But if somebody wanted to give themselves the best chance to be around year 2, year 3, year 5, what are those things that people really need to look out for?
Well, you want to make sure that your idea is very well planned. The restaurants that we see that have been around 3, 4, 5, 6 years, they can point to their initial idea and how they defined it. They did the market research and they did the sample menuing and they did the initial budgeting and they were careful to make sure that they raised enough funds to allow for contingency. Because during the opening process, sometimes things surprise you. They take longer or they're more expensive when you order them than they were when you first estimated them. So without, a good budget and without a proper contingency, then a lot of times you open up with one foot, already stuck in the grave and you try to dig your way out. So if you have good working capital, if your idea was well founded and you had a good complete budget, then you've got a much, much better chance of being able to open up and not just open up well, but operate well and be around 3, 4, 5 years or longer.
Yeah, I agree with you. That I just made that point in an article I was writing about general business. When you buy a business, people always underestimate their working capital, and things always happen. So if what are and you mentioned earlier about some of the trends in the restaurant industry that are coming up. The Uber Eats certainly making restaurants busier, perhaps without even having people in it, or the quick serve casual being very popular during the economic downturn. But maybe is white tablecloth coming back? What do you see out there?
Yeah, you hit a couple of really good hot points. And white tablecloth as a fine dining segment is strong. A lot of times you're finding it no longer with the white cloth.
Yeah, sure. I agree.
Fact, many of us have named that segment sort of upper casual, where it's independent, it's chef driven, excellent food, seasonal updates, excellent wine, really good defined service. But because of today's lifestyle and market demands, it's portrayed now in less formal circumstances, less formality. You're not seeing long tablecloths and long thin candles as often, but yet people are still expecting that attention to detail, quality of food and service, wine availability. So that's why you're noticing that per person check averages in that category are still high. We're just doing it without having to get dressed up. And we're doing it because it matches our lifestyle. Some people are eating very well, high end on a Wednesday or a Thursday because that's their day out, for example, or that's when they have someone in from out of town or a business associate to entertain. So it isn't special occasion, weekends only, anniversaries, not any longer. And I think that's just our industry adjusting to basically the buying habits because customer profiles have changed.
Yeah, we certainly see that. And you talked about healthy food a little bit. And it seems like you want to do one or the other. You want to be a restaurant that serves really, really bad, decadent food that, is going to be a splurge, or you're going to be on the healthy side. Are you seeing any kind of, or even a farm to table mix kind of thing?
Well, there you go. Yeah. Even on, say, the decadent, we know it's sauced, we know it's got a lot of chocolate, we know it's not necessarily good for you. Even on that side of the menu, the concept still wants to speak to fresh, seasonal, local, healthy. So even though every menu item may not have the appearance of eat this because it's good for you, the menu as a total is speaking to the way people want to see food today. And we want to see food as being clean, less processed, more natural, more local, and certainly fresh, more seasonal.
Yeah, that's great stuff. And so, I think a lot of restaurant owners, and I talk about this entrepreneurial as just entrepreneurs in general, it's a kind of a lonely existence sometimes. But, with the internet and like you said, with the resources out there, there's ways that people can get help. So you mentioned in the beginning, is there, do you have the ability to help people? And if so, why don't you give them the ability, your contact information or contact information of people that they can connect to?
Oh, absolutely. You're right. This industry can be very connective, and we are a restaurant industry that likes to help others that are involved in opening or operating restaurants. So I would recommend, in addition to those two information sources, I would always suggest that people check out their local restaurant association. The National Restaurant Association is large and very active. It's broken down into state associations and city chapters, and they're very helpful in directing anyone who wants to learn about opening or operating to good resources, because there's specialists out there. Specialists in design, specialists in finding real estate, business brokering. There's specialists to help you with marketing, construction, and operations. And then finally, yes, from an operations point of view, I would always refer people to a la Carte Food Service Consulting Group. I'm active in that group. The principal of that group, Ashley Rosenfeld, works constantly with people opening or wanting to operate better. Her operating partner, Omar Perrone, is a very active chef, and so he handles most of the food and beverage questions that come up. And there's always some when people are opening a restaurant or doing their first menu. So yeah, I would direct people to alacarteconsultinggroup.com if they would like further information on anything having to do with what we talked about today.
Wow. Chris, thank you so much for coming on today. So much good information, so many good resources. Thank you for popping on.
It's my pleasure. Good luck to everybody.
Hey, Andy, you know what time I think it is? I think it's time to talk about our deal of the week.
Deal of the week. Yes, it's Deal of the Week, and we have a very special guest on right now. Not a guest, one of our partners here at Transworld, one of the most prolific and successful brokers, John DeVries. He is a consummate professional, has been doing this for many, many years, knows how to sell a lot of different things. But today I wanted to talk about the deal we did with a multi-unit restaurant. It was a very substantial sale, and it had a lot of moving parts. So, John, why don't you tell us about this deal and how much it sold for, and, perhaps some of the things that went into selling it?
Yes. Good morning, Andy. So this was an interesting situation. The seller started the first restaurant about 18 years ago. It was close to the water and very, very good location. And that from that restaurant, he was able to then open up a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth, and the sixth. So over the last 18 years, he was able to put together 6 locations, all very close to the water. That was his concept, seafood type restaurants. And what was interesting is that this was one individual that took 6 locations, turned it into 370 employees with doing over $25 million a year in revenue. And when he came to me, he wanted to, obviously, at this point in his life, he wanted to sell, move on to doing other things in life, and we were able to accomplish that for him.
Right, and we got a really good buyer. Why don't you talk about the buyer a little bit?
Yes. So through our marketing, we were able to locate a private equity group. And these private equity groups typically need the revenue stream to be at a certain level. The EBITDA on this particular situation was over $2 million, and that's their threshold, that's their criteria. So they're looking for these types of investment opportunities where they can take an individual that was able to put together 6 locations and do $25 million a year in revenue, and now that's a great base for them to open up several other locations and maybe sell this to another private equity group. So that was their plan.
Yeah. So
they were able to keep the seller. They kept the seller involved. The seller held about 20% equity, and he was able to not only take some money off the table, but able to actually help grow. They just opened up 4 new locations, and they're in the process of growing this to an even larger restaurant chain as they have now.
Yeah. So why don't you give an idea of how much it sold for as a multiple and things like that so people understand?
Right. So, like I said, the EBITDA was coming in over $2 million. It sold for $12 million. They had 6 locations, doing about $25 million a year in gross revenue.
Yeah, it's a great deal. So thanks, John, for coming on. I know it wasn't an easy deal. It had a lot of little nuances we won't necessarily talk about, but it just goes to show you need a very good intermediary to get through some of these things. And John said, John, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Yes, please either email me at johnd@tworld.com, or you can call me directly at 772-260-7647.
Thanks, John. Hey, welcome back, everybody. And we have a very special guest on today. His name is Leone Padula. He's one of my dearest friends, and he is what is known as a serial entrepreneur. But he's got an incredible story. He came over to this country. He was actually born here, but he's from Italy, and he's opened several restaurants. He's bought and sold a bunch of things. He knows the restaurant business better than anybody I know. He currently owns not only a restaurant, but one of the largest, most successful bakeries in Fort Lauderdale. Artesian breads. You have to stop by there, Gran Forno, and the satellite store Pronto Cafe. And he just bought a nice big restaurant on the strip of Fort Lauderdale that he will soon rename Cafe Del Mar, which was another restaurant he had on the strip as well. So welcome, Leone.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So tell me, one of the mystery, you always seem to do really well in the restaurant business. And I always talk about you when I'm talking about different owners. And I think one of the things that you have a really good handle on is you know what's happening in your operations as far as labor cost and food cost. I mean, that seems really important.
Well, everything is important on it. It's all about timing, obviously, and dedication on it. And then once you're there, spend 12, 13, 14 hours a day on it, you get to know all this, obviously.
Yeah. So, and talking about long hour days, you are a fan of being open as long as you can in a restaurant.
Yeah, especially when you pay a high rent. That's in any business today, unfortunately. And it's hard to have a day off or 2 days off like it used to be in Florida a long time ago. Now, unfortunately, it's got to be all 7 days a week, as much as you can.
Yeah. So your restaurant on the beach, I think, was only closed for a couple hours a day, right?
Yeah. We serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner, so those are extended hours basically for a restaurant. But it's in any business. I mean, even the bakery. I mean, when we start baking bread like 2:00 in the morning. I mean, we open at 6 in the morning for the customers because we're there.
Yeah, and you do a great job of like making the customer experience special. I mean, your places look sharp. You're always keeping them sharp. I watch you kind of hover over people, making sure it's clean. How important is that to you?
That's very important. Even if today's days, you got to meet all the criteria of all the social medias and all the stars that they give you and the reviews they give you. But you just got to go ahead and put your head down and just do the best you can. I mean, it's like anything else. You got to be really, really good and keeping the place clean, giving a good product, and the customer coming back, and then hopefully they won't give you a 1-star. But you can't go by that now these days, and that's what everybody else is doing, and it's just not, it gets crazy.
Yeah,
you gotta put your head down and do the best you can. That's all.
It is, and I know. You work really hard, and I know your employees work really hard. I don't listen to Yelp anymore because I agree. I've walked into places and I get a great meal, and you can't listen to that.
Yeah, but it's not only about Yelp; it's about everything else. I mean, you just can't go by that. You just and I see a lot of restaurateurs, a lot of colleagues of mine are really frustrated on that. But you can't go by that because it happens in every business. I mean, you just do the best you can, and just finish it. That's it, you know?
Right.
That's all.
And so, when you are going to buy a business, you seem to kind of gravitate toward wanting a good location. You seem to do well with that. Is that one of the most important things when you're looking at a business?
Yeah, definitely. It's one of the most important things, but also the potential that the business has in every aspect, not only about the location. Depends on the kind of cuisine and the layout and what you can do. I mean, you got to have that vision to develop it. You can't just buy it and keep it going. It's not a donkey that works for you. You have to work for the business.
Yeah, and you seem to do really well with that. You seem to constantly trying to upgrade the interior, making things look nicer. You seem like to have to, you do almost a tear out almost every few years.
Yeah, basically. And it's all about, visioning what you can do with the place in your hands. That's all.
Yeah.
But location means a lot also.
Yeah. And you seem to lean on, like, you have some really good relationships in business. I mean, I guess me being one, but you say, like, I've met your bankers, I've met your designer, I've met a lot of your managers. You seem to have long-term relationships.
Well, that you create with years. I mean, with your vendors, with your employees, and with everybody in the trade business, that's something that's called a relationship. And, that comes with years, especially down here in Florida. It takes a while to create a relationship because people come and go here. So
right.
Actually they come, but they don't go.
Yeah, they do come. So if a young person, and we talked about this a little bit, that it's getting harder, it seems for some of the restaurateurs because big money is going into restauranting. But is there still an opportunity for the small guy to, carve out a good restaurant?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, restaurant business is a beautiful business. And believe it or not, it's not a hard business. It's very easy. Good food and be nice. That's what it's all about. It's all about hospitality and having good food. And yes, that bracket of the middle is kind of leaning down. It's kind of breaking up because now big corporations, big hedge funds, big investors are all coming in these big restaurants. And then you have the very small one with the 30, 40 seat restaurant. So the middle bracket is kind of, it's the hardest part.
Right.
That it needs to survive, and you have to be good at it. You got to dedicate it on it. I mean, there are a lot of great restaurants coming up, and you got to compete with them. You have to bring them good quality. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, it certainly is. But you seem to do well with that. And what's it like, if you had to give someone like a piece of advice, if they were thinking about getting in the restaurant business, and they were looking to buy something, what kind of advice would you give them?
Well, start from the bottom. It's like anything else. Just like my son is. I was telling you that minutes ago. You start from the bottom and you see how the operations work in every aspect. And then when you're ready, you just say, okay, you know what? I'm ready to be a boss now. I'm ready to own a restaurant. But right. You got to have the feeling of it. You got to really know the restaurant where you're at.
Yeah, I think it was funny. We were just talking before we started this about your son and your new restaurant. And you said that, it is true. You just got to get in there and do it. And sometimes you're just going to make mistakes.
Yeah, that's the only way to learn is to make mistakes. You just got to have a great hospitality personality and make sure that the customer feels good. I mean, that's what's important. The greeting, the service, the cleanness, and again, top quality. That's what it's all about. Because there's a lot of great restaurants in Fort Lauderdale. A lot of good ones. So.
Well, there's a lot of good ones all around the world, and I think you brought out some really good points that today, and I really appreciate you coming on. I appreciate your friendship, my friend, and I think you said, hey, there's a shot for everyone. You just got to work hard and learn the business.
Yep, very easy business too. It's going to be hard work.
Yep.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Leone. If you're ever in Fort Lauderdale, you got to go to Gran Forno for coffee and bread, and you got to go to Cafe de Mar on the beach and visit Leone. Thank you so much, buddy.
Thanks again. Take care.
Hey, Jessica, you know what time it is?
Money time?
Almost. It's time for Listing of the Week.
Yes, and we have Jess Bouya of Transworld Business Advisors of Bel Air, and that's in Maryland. and they have a very nice restaurant bar. And it's kind of a unique situation that Jess is going to tell you all about. Jess, welcome.
Thank you, Andy. We're super excited to have this listing as part of our portfolio. One of the cool things about it is that we're allowed to tell everybody that we are selling this business with this nice piece of property. It's 1.5 million, just under 1.5 million. The property that's connected to this amazing historic business is worth the appraisals of around 1.2 million. The business is in this inn. It's called the Fair Hill Inn that was built in the 1700s. So it's an amazing piece of history that this super successful bar, lounge, and restaurant is operating in.
So, yeah, I mean, I've seen a couple of pictures because I've been privileged to kind of get a sneak peek, and it's really a unique property. Why don't you tell them, how many people does it sit,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We recently, which is a perfect timing for this podcast, we were able to take a video crew there, and we're shooting a full walkthrough video with an amazing drone aerial footage part of it. And so we toured the whole place. Inside of it has 3 separate dining rooms, which are amazing. They probably have about 20 to 25 chairs per room. Then it has this really awesome bar with this really cozy, comfortable lounge connected to it. And then when you go into the basement, again, we're going back in time here to the 1700s. There's this really awesome wine cellar, and it's cool. It's in the video. It's really just that kind of thing you would probably think about a 1700s wine cellar. They really did a good job with that facility. Then outside of it is even better. They added a wine and beer garden. So it's this like kind of greenhouse type facility that they have a brick oven pizza oven inside of it, which is awesome. Tons of seating out there as well. The huge parking lot in the back, which is awesome. And it's right on the main road, right across the street from a 4-star horse training facility where they do all kinds of horse stuff, because Fair Hill is like horse country.
Well, that sounds awesome. I mean, it sounds like a great place to have an amazing business. Sounds like certainly unique. I mean, I don't know how many buildings are that we have, or businesses that are located in a place that was built in the 1700s. So how best to get in touch with you, Jess?
Yeah, definitely. You could definitely get in touch with us at Transworld Business Advisors in Bel Air. You could give the office a call. Our number is 410-803-3746.
Great. So thanks for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
No problem. I appreciate you having me on, and Dan and I from the Transworld Business Advisors we're just so thankful for you and your team.
Welcome to our restaurant show. And today we're featuring restaurants for sale and just talking about what the industry looks like as a whole. And I'm joined with Chris Cantwell from our Transworld Denver office, who has over 20 years experience in the hospitality industry and is just going to share some general trends with us. So Chris, welcome back, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Jessica. Glad to be back. And so restaurants bring a lot of variables into any deal. There's a couple different ways that they can sell. Many times they can sell just for their space, meaning somebody comes in, has a new concept, wants to take over the equipment and the build out and start a new brand in that space. And those deals tend to have less value than maybe somebody coming in who's going to buy the business as is, keep the name the same, keep everything the same, and continue to operate and grow the business. So there's really 2 different elements, and they can be pretty different in what businesses can sell for. So consulting with a broker and finding out what your business may be worth if you're looking to sell, or if you are looking to buy and get into a space because you've got a great new concept, there's some things that you'll want to identify. And it may be, does the space have hoods? Does the space have a grease trap? Then there's always the liquor license transfer component. And in many cases, those liquor licenses can be just transferred from one buyer to the next. And in some cases, you might have to apply for a new license. So there's variables to that too, and there's some challenges, and it's not easy to do. It's good to have the advice of a broker and, of course, an attorney and somebody involved in helping getting some of these transfers and things that need to get done. So feel free to reach out to me at any time if you've got some questions about restaurants. I know the industry very well, and I've done quite a few deals over there, so I can help if you've got some questions.
Great. Some good insight. And, you mentioned, Chris, that there's some good opportunities because building out a new restaurant is very complicated. Getting those licenses is very complicated. So there are some good opportunities for buyers in the marketplace, whether they're buying that asset only deal or an operating business. What do you see as the market in general for restaurants right now? Is it a seller's market? Is it a buyer's market? Pretty balanced? What are you seeing out in the marketplace?
Great question, Jessica. And restaurants are really the number one transaction in all of this, in all of small business brokerage. And it really comes down to inventory. There's so many restaurants out there. So at any given time, finding good restaurant space is not that hard to do. So that is good for buyers. The tough part about operating a restaurant, as you mentioned, Jessica, is you might spend anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million in building out this restaurant. And if you just can't get it profitable, you're in a situation where you may end up selling to get out of that space for maybe a couple $100,000. So there's a lot of risk in restaurants. There's a ton of competition. Staffing is always a challenge for restaurants. And there's just a lot of uniqueness to operating a restaurant and being passionate about it and getting in there and being successful. So with all those components and all those concerns, if you've got a great concept, you're going to be able to find some great space. And if you're a restaurant operator now that needs to move on and get on to something else, we can certainly help with that as well and consult with you on what your options may be.
Great. Awesome information. And on our website, tworld.com, you can take a look at all the restaurants that we do have for sale and even some industry information about that industry as well. But Chris, if anybody wants to follow up with you with questions, how is the best way to reach you?
Yeah, you can go to my website, which is ccsellscompanies.com, or you can call me at 720-370-0049. And my email is Chris, CHRIS, at tworlddenver.com.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thanks for tuning into our show today. If you like the podcast, don't forget to subscribe through your favorite podcasting app and leave us a review. If you have questions or suggestions for the show, visit us at tworld/thedealboard or email us at thedealboard@tworld.com.